All right, welcome to part 2 of the NDNA diagram generator general use and features videos. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up a diagram. I'm going to open up an XML file here real quick, and we'll draw a couple levels on a fairly large data center. And so what we're going to do first is I wanted to first note as well that in part 1, I don't believe I noted, but this is also in our facts and features section, as well as I believe in just the general diagram generator page that as part of the menu of the NDNA program suite area of the website. But basically, and I know it's definitely one of the questions on the facts and features. I'm sorry, yeah, the facts and features section. That basically only routers and switches are going to be put onto the diagram, and in some instances, WLCs, wireless LAN controllers, will be placed on the diagram. That's going to only be, for example, if they advertise capabilities switch in the CDP advertisement. So if they send a CDP advertisement of capabilities switch, then they would be placed onto the diagram, and and they would be placed on as a switch object. So but basically only routers and switches are placed onto the diagram. So you're not going to have IP phones placed onto the diagram, etc., etc. Although like UCS fabric interconnects will be placed onto the diagram because they're advertising as capabilities switch in the in their CDP advertisement. So that's kind of a nice thing that you will see UCS fabric interconnects. So one of the things that we did not cover in part 1 of the features, which we'll start off first here, is if I highlight a connector, you'll see interface begin, interface end, name begin, and name end. So you'll see the interface begin is GIGI 736, interface end GIGI 1024, and so that's this interface that I've highlighted here. And you'll see the name begin is CA Lab SW1, which is this device over here. And if I highlight the connector again, the name end is CA Lab VPN Switch 1. And we did kind of cover that in an indirect way in part 1 of the features and general use instructional video, where we talked about identifying those problem connectors that if you delete a device, they rehome to another device that would be lit up purple with the error checking to allow you to identify them and remove them. So, but basically, when you highlight an object, like here, it's a layer 2 switch I've highlighted, you'll get all that information in the data shape here, or the shape data, I should say. And then if you highlight the connector itself, then you can actually look here. And this is also real useful. Of course, generally in a diagram, you're going to want to create enough separation so you can actually see all these interfaces here on a device that's got a lot of interfaces connected. But if you just can't create enough separation, or you don't want to, you can still always figure out exactly what the interface number is just by, again, highlighting the connector, just like we showed here, and then looking at your shape data information here. And again, you'll have your begin and end separated by a comma for each pair. Begin and end, begin and end, and then the beginning and the end switch. The other thing too is I'm going to go ahead and remove the shape data information here and show you, if you launch Visio and you don't already have the shape data information here, what you do is you can go into the data tab up here and then just check off the box shape data window. And then you can, of course, move it around or snap it into the window. Again, this is a Visio thing, and that's a very important piece of data related to an NDNA diagram that I always like to have up and running, and very important information that inventory information and such that we store into the shape data that we've built into the NDNA plugin. So I'm actually just kind of looking over some notes here that I want to get some things out of the way as quick as possible and try to be a little bit more efficient than part one of the general use and features videos. So the next thing I wanted to show was if you look in, we went over auto size. So as you build a diagram, you can auto size. So we can go into, I'm going to go in and right now and just add a new diagram, and we'll go ahead and add one of the diagrams we built in part one. But what I want to do is just go in and show you different things you can do here, which we might have even covered in part one. I don't believe we did, but what you can do is you can go to the design tab and then relay out page. So again, you've got where you can relay out what you have here in a different fashion. Again, I think we did cover it briefly or already covered it in part one. If we did, I apologize for the delay here. In smaller networks, this is going to be real nice, where you might not like the way it's laid out from left to right by default. Then one of these particular options here might be a nice way that you might like to have it laid out, where you've got it from center going outward. And so there's, because we're working directly in Visio, you've got all these different options, that you can go in and work with small diagrams, so, or even bigger diagrams where you're just building two levels. So you can maybe start with one of these layouts instead, and then work from there. So again, just to show you these features that are available to you in Visio directly. And then one of the other things that we've got here in the View tab, all the way to the right, is, of course, you probably work a lot more with this type of look in Visio as a network engineer, where you just check off the grid box here. So this way it makes it easier to snap things, snap things in the same spot, because you've got your grid lines as a reference. So now I'm going to bring up the previous diagram that we had here, the bigger diagram. So one of the things, this is also in the kind of overview video that you might have seen, the introducing the NDNA diagram generator. But another nice thing that you can do is, like here again, we've got it, this center of mass out, so to speak, or the core here, which was our root device, as evidenced by the green circle around it, is going from the left out. So let's say because this is the core, we wanted to make this at the bottom and bring everything more from the bottom going upwards, depending on how you like to build your diagram. So I'm just hitting Control A here. I can Control A and select everything here, and then just rotate this 90 degrees here, and then pick it up and just kind of move it around. Again, because we're in Visio, makes it real easy to do that. Depending on how large the diagram is that you have on there and selecting it all, it might not be feasible to do it. Again, has to depends on how much processing power you've got on your PC and whatnot. So I've got a pretty powerful desktop here with a quad-core i7 and 64 gig of RAM. But basically, once I've reorientated it 90 degrees to the left, now you'll see my cores at the bottom here, and now I can just take it and adjust and send that upwards. And again, what happens is, it's real nice, is of course your interface and connectors maintain their orientation. So you can actually take these. Let me go ahead and I'll add the grid lines on this one as well, and we'll update this one, update that, and I think we've got two more, and then we're 100% there. Shift it over. Undo that. Screwed up there. So there you go. We've essentially in a fairly quick way, we've just reoriented this whole diagram that we have on here in 90 degrees, and now I can continue to work on it this way, for example, if I wanted to. You know, I can also already see from this particular diagram, well, I don't want to get too sidetracked. That would be more for the other video series we have, which is advanced usage and methodologies and approaches to building really large diagrams and breaking them up into you know, multiple diagrams and manageable chunks, if you will. So the next thing that I want to go over is the different types of connectors you can use. Again, because we're dealing in Visio, you know, it makes it real easy. You know, this is a Visio feature. This is not a an NDNA specific feature, but it makes it nice. So let's say, for example, I have, you know, let me see if there's a good use case here. So let's say I've got these two devices here, and this connector's kind of getting in the way. So I can go ahead and just highlight a connector, and when I've highlighted the connector, I can just right click and choose. I can use a right angled connector or a curved connector, in addition to what's the default generated diagram of straight connector. So if I go into curve, there you go. So now I can take that and adjust it up. So we'll take this and kind of shift that up, and we'll shift this part over here. So there you go. Let me see if I can still fit that all in there, and we can bring it down a little bit, just a little bit right there. So there you go. So you've got, you know, you can use angled connectors, you can use curved connectors. So here's another example. If I right click this and I change it into a right angled connector, there you go. So right out of the gate, I can take that and kind of adjust it and make it a little bit more manageable and looking better. And of course, you can do that as needed. So again, this is all about your own, you know, creative preference and how you want the diagram to be laid out, and how you know, once you understand the network and how it really should be, you're going to be shifting things all around, and that's going to be, I mean, that's going to be regardless of, you know, quite frankly, if you're using, you know, the SolarWinds network topology mapper for $1,500 which just generates diagrams, you're gonna, you know, you have to rearrange things because there's just no way. There's no way, at least at this point, you know, the computers, as well as who knows at what point in the future, that the computer is going to be smart enough to understand not only the network and the traffic flow, but how you want to see it. I think that is actually going to do it for part 2. For further more advanced usage and how to deal with really large networks, or larger and really large networks, see the videos on those particular topics. There's specific videos that deal with that. So we will see you in the next series. Okay, thanks.